borrow from an old phrase, it turns out that behind every successful radical Islamic terrorist is a woman, a wife or mother playing an important, if indirect, role in jihad. The rise of homegrown female jihadis in America is a phenomenon being tracked by one researcher at George Washington University. Scott Thuman spoke with her about a threat she says is being overlooked but is growing.
Du terrorisme et de la menace terroriste en France.
In Paris, France, in 2015, there were two seemingly separate terrorist attacks. One at the Charlie Hebdo newspaper, and later that week at a grocery store. The two incidents were linked by the women in the attackers' lives, who had exchanged more than 500 messages in the days leading up to the bloodshed.
I think as a society, I hate to say it, but we have latent biases about the threat posed by women.
Audrey Alexander is a research fellow at George Washington University's program on extremism.
This is like my database.
In chat rooms and on Twitter, Alexander tracks the women behind some of the virulent anti-Western rants posted on social media on a daily basis. Women like Muslima have weaponized Twitter.
Toy gun this year, AK-47 next year.
Using it as a platform to spread jihad.
So she's talking about armed protests at 20 mosques. Muslims should come armed too. Inshallah, the markets crash and burn.
Muslima was actually Safia Ro Yassin, a U.S. citizen from Missouri with 96 different handles on Twitter and thousands of followers. In February of 2016, she was arrested. According to the FBI, Yassin retweeted personally identifiable information about two FBI agents under the headline, "Wanted to Kill."
Would people be surprised if they knew the role that women have played in terrorism?
I think now more than ever, it's come to the surface, in part because social media allows us to see them in a way that we haven't seen them before.
Prime example, Tasfin Malik. She captured headlines as the woman who, alongside her husband, opened fire and killed 14 people and injured 22 others in San Bernardino, California in December of 2015.
We got officers running here, back eastbound, chasing. Now we're on foot. Look at all those units here. Okay, that's kind of, okay, we've got a very graphic situation here. We've got a black SUV. The suspect is down. We've got a long rifle in the street. You can see.
Though Alexander says female jihadists aren't usually doing the killing, the real threat is their ability to inspire. Consider someone like Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, a Jordanian who fought in Iraq and was considered the godfather of modern-day ISIS.
Zarqawi's mother was the one who first got him into religious classes. When he was the most wanted man in Jordan, he traveled back for her funeral in disguise. On top of that, when he first went to wage jihad in Peshawar, he took his mother. But I think that when we look at the role of wife and mother, we should take seriously the fact that they see their role as teaching their children the merits of jihad and raising them to be combatants.
How significant then would you say is the threat from female jihadists?
Are they the most likely to take up arms and attack a concert venue? Statistically speaking, no, they don't pose a real threat. But the threat picture is a lot more dynamic, especially considering contributions of women are long term.
And they're getting others to contribute as well through fundraising and encouraging them to join the fight.
Women are great facilitators. So looking at women's accounts online and how they can facilitate introductions, and they're great recruiters, I think that's a real threat.
Alexander says law enforcement needs to crack down on the women as harshly as they do men. A Colorado nurse named Shannon Conley attempted to join ISIS in Syria, but may have gotten more lenient handling because she's a woman.
The FBI agents treated her quite differently than they would in a lot of cases, basically trying to set her up to give her an out. Can you do anything but this? In communicating with her family, you know, a lot of steps were afforded to Shannon Conley that weren't afforded to other cases that could have been a great out for people who are on the path to violent extremism.
Alexander's dossier continues to grow.
These are all accounts.
She says that preventing attacks means spotlighting not just the men grabbing the headlines, but the women behind them.
Of course, it's debatable if some of these postings are actually criminal. Muslima, who we told you about in this story, goes on trial in federal court in December. Now, her attorneys argue that her postings actually fall under the umbrella of free speech. Prosecutors, though, they argue even if they are just retweets, they're still inciting violence.
That was a fascinating story. Thanks, Scott.